being from the HR profession myself, our guest for this podcast is somebody who's like a trailblazer in the HR space. So I think, it would be like the next 35, 40 minutes will be like a great conversation. So we have Dave, and Dave, I'm not going to get into, talking about you too much, because I think our listeners can look you up. I mean, your LinkedIn profile, your articles, your videos, your book. I mean, you just do one Google search on you, and I think the number of links that show up are like many. It's like so exciting to have you here, Dave. I think it'll be like a very, very, very interesting 35, 40 minutes as we talk about your experiences in HR and your thought leadership in HR and what you see for HR in the future, right? From an HR perspective. And I know Jess has a lot of interesting stuff, Jess, on some of the other stuff that, he wanted to talk to Dave about. And so it'll be like a very, very exciting 35 minutes.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I should send it to my mother. So thank you very much. Very kind.
Dave, maybe to kick us off, you look at this career and all the speaking and the books and maybe you could give people just a little bit of a couple of the career highlights. And then if you will you talk about my favorite concept of yours, that HR is not for HR, it's for the business.
I think career highlights are often made from failures that turn into successes. So I was in college decades ago. I was on my way to law school, took a course in and I've shared this story, but I took a course in what was called organizational behavior, OB back then. And the professor was a brilliant mentor. In fact, I just saw him last week. He continues to be a mentor. He said, I'm not going to give you any assignment, but read books, go to work, where you worship, where you play, and write about what the organization is like. And I thought, that's weird. So I was an English major. So my paper was, one of the early papers was The Sources of Power in Paradise Lost, Shakespeare, King Lear, and Organizational Behavior. And I cheated, I confess. I turned it into my English professor, and I turned it into him. And my English professor said, that's weird. And he said, that's great, write something else. So I wrote for him in 15-week semester, probably 15, 10-page papers. And he called me and he said, who are you? And nobody writes that many papers. And I said, I just captured with organizations. They change everything about our lives, where we play, where we work, where we worship, where we live. Organizations are so key. And he said, take another course. And I did, and I got addicted. My soon after wife told me I had OCD. She's a psychologist. OCD is organization compulsive disorder. Even today, I will go into an organization and I'm a horrible, horrible person to visit with, because in a restaurant, I'll say, if the manager came over, I could improve your productivity 5%. And I write letters to executives all the time. Without your advice, here's some stuff. So my passion is organizations. They affect everything we do. They affect the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the lives we live. And how do you get this organization to assimilate people in a way that gets the best out of the people and serves their customers? And so as I began to study that in a whole lot of ways that I won't bore you with. So failure number one is I quit my English department. My thesis was on the English department at the university where I was studying, because I said, I want to study this department. And my advisor, who was my mentor, said, oh, that's a great idea. So I did a big study of the department. They called me in a semester before I graduated and said, you did a great study. You're going to graduate with all the due appropriations, but not in English. And they kicked me out a semester before I graduated. And my professor, I went to him, I said, what did you do? And he said, oh, you learned so much. So I have a series of things that didn't work well in my career, out of which I continued to learn. I just like looking at organizations. And so you begin to say, what are some of the elements that make up an organization? Obviously people, but it's not just people, it's how they come together. And what brings them together? Who's hired? And I think Gautam knows a lot about how to get the right people hired and how to bring them on board, how they get paid, how they get trained, how they interact as teams. Suddenly, you look around and you say, where does that stuff occur? It occurs through the HR department, if it's done well. And so my view is that HR is not about HR. It's not about those systems. It's about building an organization that succeeds in the marketplace. I'll tell one other quick story. If a company doesn't succeed in the marketplace, there is no workplace. A lot of very do-gooder HR people say, I'm going to go make everybody happy. And their companies don't work. So a quick story, a year ago in May, I'm doing work for one of the big 5 technology companies, 100 senior leaders, mostly PhDs. I bet neither of you have ever been intimidated, but these are PhDs in physics and chemistry and mathematics, and I'm just scared to death. I'm thinking, who's going to listen to me, a failed English major? How am I going to get their attention? So I started and I said, what do these companies have in common? Digital equipment, which they all knew because they were in the business, Gateway, Eastman Kodak, Toys R Us, Sears, Enron. Somebody yelled out, they all went broke. And I yelled back, I consulted for every one of them. And I'm here to take you from 200,000 people right down to 20. Let's go. And they stopped and there was just a second of pause. And then they said, well, that's pretty clever. And I said, and I learned from all those mistakes. And here's the lesson learned. It's not what you do inside your company. All those companies, Kodak, Sears, Toys R Us, they had great internal HR hiring, training, development practices, but they didn't understand how they made them successful in the marketplace. Toys R Us didn't hire people who built products and services that Amazon could have sold. They missed it. And I think that ability to connect what we do inside with outside is where HR can and should be headed. That was too long of an answer, but a little quick story.
It wasn't too long of an answer. I want to go further with it. When you think about an organization or individual that you feel like has done this well, is there anybody that comes to mind?
Absolutely. Gotham. I just think Gotham could tell his story. No, I mean, there's a lot of people. The danger of picking a person is the In Search of Excellence danger. You don't remember the book. I've just dated myself again.
No, I read it.
And here's the 42 excellent companies, and then 3 years later, they're all gone. What I think you want to look at is the principles. And what's the concept? In fact, people get enamored. It's one of my ideas. Best practice. I've written books. They're on my shelves. I'll send them and they'll be on your shelves, so they'll not get read any more than my shelves. And you say, tell me the best practice. And my comment back is, I want you to create your own best practice. So pick an HR area, staffing, training, compensation. Just pick one of the HR topic areas. Acquisition of talent. Let's do acquisition. Adam, I know you have technology. Let me do an example. If I'm an entrepreneur and I got to hire someone, let me tell you the idea, the principle, and then you can say, we've worked with dozens of companies who've done it. They haven't all failed. I go to my best customers and I say, you tell me what are the characteristics of someone that I need to hire who will serve you better. Whoa, that's kind of interesting. Here's an example of a company. They got a salesperson. Jess, you're in sales. Got him, you're a customer. I'm in HR. And I say, oh, we're going to have some distraction from the side. So, I say to you, Jeff, the salesperson, can I go visit with you? Got him, who's a great customer. And you say, why? And I say, because I'm from HR. I'm here to help. If an HR person ever says that to you, run the other way. That's a horrible lie. Because I want to help you, Jeff, be a better salesperson. So you say, okay, I'll go. So Jeff is meeting with Gotham. You're selling a technology or service or some kind of great new product. And I'm observing. And Gotham looks at me and he says, so I've worked with Jeff before. Who are you? And I say, I'm Dave. I come from the HR department. Let me tell you why I'm here. Right now, you buy about 30% of the product in our area from us. We have 30% of your revenue. I have just loved listening to what Jess has talked about. He's a great salesperson, and he is selling you a product and a service that will help you. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and look at who we hire, how we train, how we pay, how we organize, how we do career development. Because I now know, Gotham, what's in your mind that we need to do. Jeff is selling you a product. I want to build with you a long-term relationship. So we're going to have our people and culture dedicated to you. And here's the takeaway. Right now, we have 30% of your share. We want 60. This isn't fun and games. And if we don't get 60 because of what I do, I'm going to go back and we're going to do it again. We're going to hire, train, develop, onboard, everything so that our people and our organization does the things that will help you be more committed to us. Now, that's as specific as I can get. I've done that exercise in dozens of companies. And the final thing, just to you as a salesperson, you get all the commission, which now makes the salesperson a little happier. That's the idea. And I can go deeper on that. But to me, that's so cool because it's no longer HR, what's the Doonesbury, the guy that got in trouble, the HR person and the TV shows about HR that are also negative. No, this is about building relationships with customers and investors, as you know from your work at Goldman and other places. Investors have to get a little more insight. And if we can give them insight into the quality of management and people, that's cool. That's the agenda I have.
Wow. Well, I'm a fan of that agenda. Gautam, what kind of questions does it bring up?
Yeah, I'm first of all, I'm startled. So Dave, I mean, if you look at it, from the beginning, right, HR was always support, right? I mean, you had sales, you had marketing, strategy, the all front-facing function getting revenue. I think the biggest change from what you just said in the last 5 or 8 minutes is that the way you envision HR and therefore the HR professional of the future is a person who's front-facing with the customer, right? Because even if you look at talent acquisition, the way you explained it, actually the customer is writing the JD. Right.
Absolutely.
So this is like revolutionary, right? Like till now, job descriptions have always been written by people in the organization, right? What you are suggesting is that, hey, no, that's not correct, right? You go outside because the customer is all that matters, right?
And the investor, obviously, but the customer leads to the investor. And absolutely. I mean, why do I have to write books? You got it in 5 minutes. I mean, it's really in some ways so simple. Because you say that, are you hiring people your customers would hire? People on the line. Are people our most important asset? Somebody said, Dave Ulrich said that. And I said, Jess Larsen said it. Gautam said, everybody has said that. And it's wrong. Our people are our customers' most important asset.
Wow.
If our people are not our customers' asset, then we've got the wrong people on board. And we can involve, now you say examples. Southwest Airlines in general. And we've all flown. We've flown dozens of airlines. We've all done it. Describe a flight attendant and is, very different. Have you flown Southwest, either of you? I don't very often. Flight attendants tend to be more fun, more engaging. Why? One of the things they try to do is get them screened through technology and other talent acquisition tools like you have and say 300 people applied. Here's 50 who we think meet the criteria. We're going to hire 25. They're interviewed by a panel of customers. Given a choice, I'd rather have a vibrant, energetic flight attendant who's got a sense of humor than a dour sourpuss. Sourpuss, that's a bad word, but that's just stuff that it's training. Why don't you have your customers help you design the training? Instead, we have consultants or advisors. We're going to tell you what we know. Well, that may not be what the customer needs. We ought to get in training. Why not have the customers present? Let's do a case study and we'll talk about how this other company is good. So you, the leader, will learn a lot about a company you don't care about. Well, I think that's kind of stupid. Why don't I learn about my company? And then why don't we have the customers attend so they can learn with us? Anyway, all those ideas, just that, and Gautam, you said it brilliantly. The more that we can include customers in those traditional HR processes, the more they build that relationship. And again, the outcome. I want to go from 30% of your revenue to us to 60. So if I hit 50, that's a big gain. And I'd like to get even more. I mean, and if not, then I'm doing the wrong stuff.
So what does it mean, Dave, for the new HR professional? Right? If you were to compare the qualities of person today or getting into the profession in, say, 2023 versus people who've got in over the last, say, 20, 25 years.
Great.
What would be the couple of things which you would think would be like really different or would need to be present in today's professionals as compared to the past?
In the past, and I love research, just so it's clear. I do have a PhD and I love data and we collect oodles of data, gobs of data that we put into books and nobody reads. We studied that. for 30 years, we've got data from about 120,000 people over time. You'd always define HR competence around a role. You're a business partner, a change agent, an employee champion, and we've written about it. The metaphor today is different, and we just collected data. And again, this goes back to my English roots where I failed. I like verbs. And so the research we've done today says you're going to go into HR. A verb is an action. What do you need to know and do? Number one, you need to know how to accelerate a business. So in your companies, Jess, if you were bringing in an HR person or if you were giving advice to one of your clients who's in HR, does he or she know how to accelerate the business? Then you can filter out the skills they need. Can I read a balance sheet? Can I read an income statement? Can I figure out market share? Your job is to accelerate the business. Number two, by advance, that's the verb, human capability, by advancing talent, organization, and leadership. Through mobilize information, bringing data, bringing evidence, bringing insight, making sure that you foster collaboration, getting people to work together. And the fifth one we found in our research is you simplify complexity. Take the complex employment process and turn it into a very simple. I was in a company recently, they put together a 9-page process map for acquisition of talent. And I said, you've just made a lot of consultants rich. Get it on a page. Get it on a page. Okay, so got him. If I were advising people to go into HR, don't go into HR because you like people. My wife, whose picture is on the wall, is a psychologist. I'm a psychologist because I like people. She told me once, a lot of times psychologists meet with people who are not very likable. And I mean, that's a horrible way to say it, but I like the challenge people bring to an organization. That professor, look at the organization. Why is it working? Why is it not working? And then try to change it. Not the way I changed the English department where I went to school or in other companies I've been in, don't tilt windmills. But how do you get that organization to create value in the marketplace? That's my passion.
Wow. No, that's very interesting. No, I think the fact that, HR, the way you're envisioning it is like such a strategic function, right? From an organizational development perspective, right? Like accelerating growth. I mean, I think everything starts from there. I think the way you defined it, accelerating growth was your key, and then everything came after that. Right.
I love it. And so let me, for those watching, I'm going to make a fool of myself. I should share some of the statistics so that I'm credible, but I won't. So what does HR today bring to the discussion? One, and I'll be really fair, you've got to get the administrative work done well. So there is value in technology, and I think OpenAI, ChatGPT are going to be, you don't need to do a job resume anymore. Just put in ChatGPT. This is a salesperson of this size job. What do I know? I think we're going to find technology, just the administrative work can get done much, much better. So what is the strategic work? Our research shows there's three things. I'm going to hold up my hands. My fingers are talent. That's people, right place, right job. My organization is my fists. People come together as a team. They work together. You got to have good people. You got to have good organization. I don't know if you follow sports or movies. In sports, 20% of the time, the leading scorer in football, hockey, soccer, basketball is on the team that wins. 80% of the time, it's the teamwork. Movies, 20% of the time, the leading actor or actress in the Academy Awards wins. 80% of the time, it's the team that wins movie of the year. And the third lever is leadership. And I know, Jess, you've done a lot with leadership and coaching. Leadership is a combination of talent and organization. It brings those two together. And for us, that's what an HR person, Jess, should bring to the discussion. Do we have the right talent for growth? Or I was in a company this week. Their real focus is cost. That's fair. What do we do with our people? What do we do with our organization? What do we do with our leadership so that we can deliver cost or growth or innovation wherever we're focusing?
I'm such a fan of this approach. We were excited to have you on the show. Something along with it and the idea of getting the word out about this. I'd love for you to talk about the value of becoming a thought leader and HR thought leaders. And I mean, you've got I think you have over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know exactly what a thought leader is, so I'm going to be honest. I like thoughts that push boundaries. I guess I have pet peeves. Do you have a pet peeve, Jess? Do you have any things that just frustrate you?
Yeah.
What is one?
Enough.
I got to get yours before I share mine. So
Okay.
that's cool.
One of mine is HR people who treat training like I'll bring in a bunch of my employees are special ops guys and CIA, FBI retired guys. I'll bring them in for like a high performance, program, and the HR people treat it like it's like a perk for the individual. Like this is like a reward for having worked here. And like, well, I'm not sure if they're going to like doing all that hard work to get better. Isn't there like an easier version of this? And I'm like, oh, I think there's been a mismatch here. Like I thought we got hired by a business to make the business better. Like we're not going to make it intentionally painful for the people, but like we didn't think this was like the reward for having done a good job. We thought this was how you're going to learn how to do a better job.
Yeah.
So that's pet peeve for me of like I think we got hired for the wrong thing.
I think your 935th show should be on that so that you can vent. And when you vent, you'll feel better. That's what my wife taught me. One of my pet peeves is old wine in new bottles. I mean, so we come up with these latest HR fads, Great Resignation, Quiet Quitting, Monday, whatever it was. And sometimes I love to go back to the basics and say, there are basic principles around managing people, organization, and leadership that will help your company be successful. And so if that's thought leadership, it's always stretching to the next level. And so when I see people presenting their HR work, I almost always ask question number one, how's it going to affect the marketplace? So I see somebody who says, I got the latest, greatest HR app. And they're out there all the time. I get all the time asked. I say, good, let me see your website. Let me see your proposal. I had lunch with somebody a few months ago, and they were all excited. We have a new way to do engagement surveys. We have a new app, and it's got all this cool technology. And after 30 minutes, I said, we've just spent 30 minutes. You've never once mentioned a customer or an investor. Have a good lunch. I'll pay. But I'm not going to invest in you because you're building HR for HR. You're not building it to succeed in the marketplace. You don't have that mindset. The other one I love is to say, so what did you build on? Whose work have you acknowledged? God, you've had businesses since, if I remember right, 94, 97. I'm hoping your work today is not what you did in 97. I did a book in 97 called HR Champions. I've written a number of books. And everybody says, that was the greatest book and it was so good. And I'm going, I've written 15 books since then or more. I'm not afraid of that book. God, are you ashamed of your early company?
Definitely not.
Oh, it was a great company.
Absolutely.
And it was good, but that's not what I'm doing today.
Absolutely.
And Jess, if that's thought leadership, I'll jump into that space in a minute. What it requires for me is observing. Watch. What's an issue going on out there? And you see them right now. You see mental health as a big issue. And let's go a step deeper because I have a psychologist wife. Depression is looking back and trying to overcome the past. Anxiety is uncertain about the future. But the issue I'm hearing today is loneliness in the present. All the issue of hybrid work and distributed work. So how do you build an organization that can manage both depression and anxiety, the past and the future, but the present? I love questions to which I don't have answers. And if that's what thought leadership is about, that's good. So I've written a lot of books. I discovered when COVID hit, it takes me a year to write a book, a year to produce it and edit it, and 6 months to get it out, and it's out of date. So I started posting on LinkedIn. I was a troglodyte. I had never done it. I like it. And LinkedIn should pay me for the ad. Here's what I like. There are stupid people on LinkedIn. There are stupid people everywhere. They troll. But after a while, they go away because they're not relevant. I posted a piece this week on, I think it was on taking care of yourself so that you can care for others. That's well, you do coaching, Jess. One of the things I always do in coaching is, are you caring for yourself? Because if you don't take care of your own emotional needs, you're not going to have the reserve to care for other people. Not new to me. And I posted some tips. I've gotten 35 comments. Probably 25 to 30 of them are just really good ideas. That's a focus group. That's for me. Some people use LinkedIn to broadcast. Let me broadcast what I know. I use LinkedIn to engage. Tell me what I have wrong. And out of those comments, a bunch of them, I'm going to think differently about that. So for me, if that's thought leadership, it's seeing a phenomena that doesn't have an easy answer. How do you build a better English department in this school? There's not an easy answer to that. Diving into it, studying it, and then learning and struggling to get better. I try to do that. And again, it makes me a horrible dinner guest because I'll try to improve the way the restaurant's managed. And I've tried to improve airlines. My wife sometimes won't go with me. She'll sit in another section because I'll say, you could board this airline about 10% quicker if you did some of these things. And I try to avoid that. I'm getting better at that. But for me, that's thought leadership. Jess, you've had a lot of, what do you see? You've had 900 episodes between you and among you. What's thought leadership? What makes somebody who's really a thought leader?
I think there's the thought leader, the tagline, the people who are good at getting attention. And then I think there's what I hope, maybe you better say like real thought leadership. And to me, the real thought leadership is the highly valuable but uncommon wisdom, like applied knowledge.
Nice.
Nice. I focused this last year a lot on founders who've grown their companies over $1 billion and been able to get a number of much bigger than that. I had Chip Wilson on that day. Lululemon was worth $47 billion and Fred Kassar $22 billion. Doesn't matter. What I find is the bigger the company, the more humble the CEO is in being absurdly concerned with what's in it for the customer, and little to no time spent trying to find confirming evidence about how right they are.
Yeah.
And then paired with something you said on observation is they don't only listen. They're deep observers for observing what's not being said. And they're willing to take quiet time to think and connect the dots between what they've heard, what they've seen that nobody's talking about, and just push themselves harder instead of the surface level answer. That's what I've heard.
Boy, that's so nice. I like, in the books I write, I like to start with a story that keeps it simple. We've done 3 or 4 books on a simple story. And it's so simple. I got called in once, 2 firms in the same industry, pick 2 firms, Coke and Pepsi, it doesn't matter who they are. They have the same earnings, same industry, and their stock price varies. That doesn't make sense at some level. So pick banks. If you're in banks, you got 2 firms in banking, pick fast food restaurants. Why? What a simple question. We started to explore that, and we discovered, and it also gets into the merger work that I know you've done, that investors don't just value earnings, they value the perception of future earnings and the reduction of risk, called intangibles. Well, what gives a firm its intangibles? That's a great question that we've been pursuing. Why do 2 firms in the same industry with the same earnings have different market value? And to begin to pursue that becomes really fun. And then to link it to HR. There's all kinds of places I could go with that. But if I'm an entrepreneur, what's my cost of capital? Now, it may be stock if you're issuing capital, or it may be equity, or it may be debt. But you pay a risk premium. How do I get that investor, debt or equity, to have confidence in my future, in my intangible, my talent, my organization, my leadership, this little triad? And if I can do that, I think that I then am going to get a premium in the marketplace, which is a benefit to everybody. This isn't just capitalism. It's not just good for the person. It's good for the market and for the person. It's a virtuous cycle. So that's the kind of stuff we study. Quick example, big company. And I know on your call, you have a lot of entrepreneurs, but big company in Asia, founder. So this is a founder who's been one of those successful companies. This company, a big company in Asia, is worth about 15 billion US. And the founder is in his 80s. So he knows he's got to do succession. So he decides to build a training center, which is the logical way to get next generation leadership. He spends an enormous amount of money, 400 million. That's an enormous amount of money, even in Jersey City. or wherever you live. And he hires a PhD to run the training center to teach their executives how to be better leaders for the future. And he says to her, do a cost benefit analysis of my 400 million. And she called and said, if executives improve 10% a year, it's going to take 83 years to pay back 400 million. And I can't go to him and say, the cost benefit is just your ego. What do I do? Well, this is the value of thinking outside. I said, don't start with the improvement of your leaders. Start with the increased perception of the 15 billion in market value. What if you could increase investor perception of your future firm 4%? 4% of 15 is 600 million. Your job in leadership development is to increase the investor confidence in your future 4% by building training, leadership programs, all the things you do in leadership development that you do, Jess, coaching, leadership, so that investors have a 4% increase in confidence and you're going to get a 50% return. And she said, wow, I've never thought about that. How do I do it? And I said, I don't have a clue. I've never done it either. That's why I don't like best practices. Let's go create that. And she's doing it. It's hard to ferret out who gets credit for what and all that crap, but just that logic, I think that's really creative. So what do? You bring investors in to design the program, not just customers. We said that earlier, Gautam.
Yeah.
They participate, they invest, they design, they become the case studies. And she's getting there. So that's the kind of stuff, Jess, that HR is not about traditional HR. It's about how do we succeed in this marketplace through the things that we know and do.
I was just thinking, two things, right? When you were talking about the very interesting concept of how to measure human capital, right? And how to link it with future valuation, actually. That's very, very interesting, how it can become such an integral part. But something which is always, I'm going to just change track a bit, Dave, and I really want to get your insight on this. So, and this has always confused me. So if you look at an artist, art is the study of the uncommon by its definition, right? You look at any art. When you look at art, you say, oh, this is special. Why? Because it's uncommon. Science is a study of the common, right? Yes. Scientific law has to be common, right? Law of gravitation will not change, whichever part of the earth I am on, right? That's what makes it science. Now, if you look at entrepreneurship, right? And if you look at a founder, the artist and the scientist, right? Now I'm talking like a person. So what would you think would be that constituent of a good founder, of an entrepreneur, an artist or a scientist?
Which are you?
No. That would not be fair.
My answer is going to be, again, this is not an academic answer, but it's based on research. And there's some great research by Clay Christensen before he passed away, not Innovator's Dilemma, but the Innovator's DNA. One of the things we find in our research consistently is the best leaders, entrepreneurs, investment advisors, et cetera, navigate paradox. Let me say that again. They navigate paradox. There's a tension between art, creativity, and science stability. I mean, whichever dimensions you want to get. The greatest leaders know how to navigate and have the bandwidth to play both. So they know, when do I need to become an artist? To observe, to discover, to figure out what's not there. When do I need to be a scientist? Now, we all have predispositions. And I'm curious which you're predisposed to do. But if I know my predisposition is to be the artist, the creative, guess what? I surround myself with somebody who can complement me with science. If I'm a scientist and I love the discipline of rigor in science and statistics, I surround myself with an artist so that together 1 + 1 = 3. And the ability for entrepreneurs to navigate that. They talk about discover versus deliver in some of the Clayton Christensen books with Dyer and Gregerson. And I really like the DNA. Discover, that's art. Deliver is science. And the best entrepreneurs know how to navigate both. And if they can't personally do it, and some can, they recognize their bias and surround themselves with somebody who complements their skills.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And I think Probably because you can't be successful with just one.
No, because if you're a creator, you've created all this great stuff,
But you have
but
to
nobody can market it because you haven't got you need discipline to get it to market. If you can get it to market, but it's bad stuff, it's not going to sell very long. And so how do you surround and that's why remember my stupid little hand gestures, you got individuals and you got team. That's why the team generally has 4 to 6 times the impact on performance than the individual, because the team should have people with different backgrounds and different skills. I'm really curious. Gautam, you know Jeff better than I do. Is Jeff more of the artist or the statistician?
he's the artist.
Super. And so, Jeff, what's got him?
I struggle with that because I see both, because I see so
That's
much
good.
artist. I see so much artist in, like, you know, he's running a company across the oceans. He's got a team over in India. He's got people in Jersey City. He's built businesses and sold them. But then he is so interested in something that's repeatable and duplicatable and consistent over time. So I see a mix in him.
And that's fine. That's what I love, the 2x2. It's paradox. If you're strong on one, you got to balance. Some people can do both. Right now in the HR field, I'm seeing a lot of people around employee primacy, great resignation, and they're saying, all you have to do is care for your people. You're an entrepreneur, care for your people, have empathy, show compassion. I come in and I say, let me give you a paradox. You got to care for your people and you got to compete in the marketplace. And you've got to learn, and how do I navigate that? My answer is, I'm not exactly sure. But if you fall too right, one or the other, we compete, we don't care about people. We're just going to ruthlessly cut heads. That's not going to help. We're going to care about people and not succeed in the marketplace. You're going to care for each other, chanting that you need more money and you're out of work. Navigating that paradox for me is more of an art than a science. And yet I think that's got them where our research shows it. So we have research, our personal evidence shows it. And so when I meet with leaders to do coaching, and Jeff, I know you've got a coaching business, I like to start by helping people recognize what are you trying to accomplish? How do you define success? And then what are the paradoxes that you're going to have to navigate to get there? And I'm going to finish this. Once you kind of know your predisposition, I tend to be more of the artist. I tend to be more about caring. You've got to surround yourself or move to the other axis. And then the genius comes, the last piece of paradox. You've got to recognize that somebody else is going to have a different way to navigate their paradox. Gautam, I assume you have people on your team that don't approach work the same way you do.
Absolutely. And it's completely diverse. And that's
a strength. That's a strength. Because if I only bring people on my team, you advise me to be, I was talking to an executive and he said, Dave, if you and I agree on everything, one of us won't be necessary.
Yeah.
And it won't be me. And then he said, but when we go public, we go with one voice. Don't disagree with me in public. Come in private. Should I share this? I was doing work and again, I hate to share companies, but this is a company that's been successful and the leader has passed away. I was doing work with a Marriott executive team, dignified, the Marriott family. And, we were having our morning break and coffee and getting in. The door closed and Bill Marriott lit into people. Oh, challenged them, pushed them, aggressive. And then the door opened, charming, delightful. And I said, what's going on? And they said, you see our secret sauce. We're going to disagree behind closed doors. We love each other. We care for each other. We are a family, but we're going to disagree. And we're going to disagree with respect. I mean, this wasn't disrespectful, but why are you making that kind of kitchen? Why are you selling that kind of product? Don't you have data that says that? I mean, just pushing assumptions with evidence. I hope we can get executives who can do that in a gracious way. We don't need public disclosure of that. But anyway, that's the world that we try to live in our coaching.
Wow. That makes so much sense. I think that's really brilliant. Yes, I'm done. Over to you.
So I got a question I got to ask. I mean, I am intimately curious. You've done all these episodes. You have a finger on the pulse of business around the world. What's one or two issues that leaders need to start being aware of that's not yet being talked about enough? Does anything come to your mind? This is my chance to...
Gautam, why don't you go first?
No, that's first you.
It's a tricky question. I'm not looking for... this has got to your point, and I'm going to talk for a minute while you think.
Yeah.
Now, I've got data. Now, this is the key to a survey is not the survey. The key to the survey is what you're asking about. So what's out there that, wow, I'm hearing, two firms in the same industry with the same earnings have different processes. Emotional well-being is a critical issue. Personalizing work. That's one I'm capturing a lot right now. What's something you're sensing? Just, you don't even have words for it. Just,
So I'll just give you one. I'll take the liberty. I'm seeing the growing relevance of location. I think.
can we high five?
I think.
Say more about that. I love it.
Yeah, the biggest change the world has seen, and in fact, that has just started, is the growing relevance of location. I think with 3D calling, holograms, with 5G now, right? I mean, we can have a conversation in the virtual world, which will be as good as the real world, right? So a business, yes, I would still want to meet you personally, because if you want to have a drink with each other, then obviously in the virtual world, it's a very poor substitute for raising your glass and doing cheers. But at a professional, at a business level, I think, yeah, but it's not the same. It's not the same. You have to hear the noise, right?
Yeah, I know. And I get spilled on myself. So,
but I think in the business world, I think location will become irrelevant.
I'd like that.
Yeah, people,
there was a big push with COVID about hybrid work. Where are you going to work? My comeback to that, and I've had colleagues write great books, hybrid is redefined work. If you're creating value for a customer, that's the boundary of work. Think about that. If you're creating value for a customer today, I don't care if you're in the office, I don't care if you're at home, I don't care if you're in a coffee shop. And if you're at work and not creating value for a customer, why are you there? So I just now there is something to be said to being in person. That's the loneliness issue. And I struggle with that one. I've said, we can't be as connected through technology as we are in person.
No, my take on that is within the organization, you need face-to-face time, because collaboration is a must. Yeah. And collaborating on a, like whiteboarding in a virtual world is not that easy. Whiteboarding in a physical world is far easier.
And it's going to get better.
Yeah. But I'm saying from an external collaboration perspective, like customer collaboration, right? I think virtual world will be it'll become irrelevant.
I agree.
Customers can be anywhere in the world.
And for me, the boundary of work is not the place. My father would get up in the morning, go to work, come home from work. I did that for years. I go to work, I come home. No, work is wherever I am that is doing something to create value. And I think I really like that. That's a trend I think we're going to see.
And when I started this current company, right, I got inspired by the single line, which I read about it and then I mocked it. Is like, if you have to be everywhere, then you've got to be nowhere. Because if you are somewhere, then you can't be everywhere.
That's nice. I love that line.
Yeah. So if you look at air is everywhere, right? And air is nowhere. Right.
That's so nice. And for a company, that means you got to keep focused on those customers and the value, the discipline of market leaders. That's really, thank you. I love that reinforcement, because some of my colleagues have written some really great books. Hybrid work is changing the world. My sense is we're going to come up. Guess what? You're going to have a policy based on your job. You have to come to work. You don't come to work 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And where you work is not going to be the dominant agenda. It's what you do and how you create value for others. Boy, Jess, that was helpful. Thank you, Gautam.
Okay, I've got one. Well, I'll do 1.5. So I'll start with my half, which is the obvious one. Everyone talks about AI. And as much as people talk about AI, I see a huge gap. I'm lucky enough to have a business partner. My brother, we commute back and forth to the office together. And multiple times a week, he is either added a new automation or new AI tool to us week after week after week after week. And for as much as I hear all my friends talk about AI, every news outlet talk about it, what I don't hear is my friends say, oh, my team member just added this. Oh, my staff just added that. Oh, my partner just added this. And I'm not seeing the consistent weekly learning curve. I mean, for people who say that this is potentially has the same impact as the discovery of fire, right? I see a drastic underinvest. As much as people talk about it, I see a drastic underinvestment in learning for it. But maybe a slightly less obvious one is the dwindling need for salespeople. I got my first sales job as a 15-year-old. What is that? 28 years ago. I became a millionaire at 24 because of my sales. I made enough in commissions. Okay. Selling investments, and it is becoming less and less and less needed as you look at how many of the answers we can get on our own agenda off of a website with good video, with a good customer experience, with a frequently asked questions, where a website is not a seller's brochure, it's a buyer's guide where it's serving them, not me. And I look during my own career, the amount of people that want to talk to a salesperson at 10% or 20% through their buying cycle is almost non-existent. People want 70%, 80% through that buying cycle before they want to talk to a person. I had this conversation with a guy. We actually trade coaching. He has a $500 million AI robotics company. We had this conversation last week, and he said, "Oh yeah, I really want to know this is what I want to do before I'm going to let any of their salespeople start bugging me. Like, how much can I find out without having to get pestered? Like, I'm busy. I'm a $500 million company on multiple continents."
Yeah.
And so to me, like, we lived in a world that was so sales dominated. And in just the last decade or decade and a half, the power of really exceptional customer service-based marketing has flip-flopped in its importance. Like, that used to be 20%, sales was 80%. And to me, it's flip-flopped and business is not caught up.
I love that. With information ubiquity almost, you can get access to information, and Chat GPT, OpenAI, is going to help that. I was just thinking, do either of you buy much from Amazon?
Or not?
Who's your sales rep?
Right?
Me. No, I mean, Amazon's got it. I mean, I don't have a sales rep getting an 8% commission. Everyone I know buys a lot from Amazon. That was not a trick question. And nobody has a sales rep. And that's what technology begins to let us do. And again, the premise, Jess, I think, is if I'm an entrepreneur or an investor, how do I create an information system so it's the information that connects me with that customer, not just a person? That's very clever. I like it.
Well, trust over persuasion. Can I build enough trust that I made way better money than all of my friends. I was a snowboarder. All I was trying to do is make enough money in the summer that I wouldn't have to have a job during the winter, right? I made way more than my friends having construction jobs and stuff. And then when I got into sales, I made a multiple of my friends. And I did like the seller be sold type sales, verbal judo. Okay. When I switched to like what I call the trusted advisor sale, where instead of my job to convince people, it was, how can I educate them so much that they see the same thing as me and they would make the same choice without having to be talked into something?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like my commissions went up by decimal points, not by percentages, right?
Nice.
And we can do that with the website now. Skip the entire commission.
Absolutely. And there may be a kick. For me, the best test of sales is maybe my product's not the right one for you. I'm here to help you. I get that in teaching. A lot of the friends I work in teaching or coaching say, let me tell you what I know. My first question is, you tell me what you need. And if I know something that will help you, that's good. If I don't, I give more referrals than I have clients. I mean, somebody came to me the other day and said, we're really struggling with we're a company that just came out of private equity. We went public, and now we're having to manage executive comp in a public company because it's very different with stock and all that stuff. And he said, I saw you were on the board of directors, the head of a comp committee. And I said, let me be blunt. I got made the head of a comp committee and I hired a consultant at the first meeting. Let me tell you who I hired, because they're smarter than me on this. I mean, and I think that's the information that we hope we can get through technology. I don't have, just first time it ever hit me, I don't have an Amazon point person. I'm my own point person. Thank you. Those are both very, very helpful. Let me tell you one of the things I discovered recently, and it may be helpful to the entrepreneurs who are listening. Do we live in a world of uncertainty? It's crazy. Are we going to have a recession or not? Is inflation going up? What's interest rates? What's unemployment? What's going to happen politically? We don't know. I'm going to ask you a very dangerous question, Justin. I don't know your background. Do you have children?
4.
How old are they?
18 to 12.
Do you know where they're going to go to school? No. Do you know what they're going to study? No. Do you know who they're going to form relationships with? No. There's a lot of things we don't know. I have 3 kids and I have 10 grandkids in between. I'm older than you, obviously. I picked you because you're friend. I could do God, I'm the same with you. So there's uncertainty. Jess, what do you know about your 4 kids? Absolute no. No matter what happens, where they go to school, how they study, who they form relationships with, what their values are, what do you know? Will you love them?
Yeah.
By the way, the tenor of this conversation just changed because you know that. Now, you've got an 18-year-old. That 18-year-old's probably already tested that, and you've got a 12-year-old who will. Why do I say that? I think sometimes in a world of uncertainty, which is all around us, we chase the uncertainty. Stop. What am I certain about as a leader? I'm certain that I'm going to learn. God, it would be really fun to get inside your head. Well, that may not be that fun, but it would be so interesting to get inside your head. In all of these serial entrepreneur things, what were you, a lot of uncertainty. What were you certain about? I'm going to focus on a customer. You said the other one, I'm going to have the discipline of market leadership. I'm not going to be all things to all people. I'm going to make sure my people know that I care, and I'm going to challenge them. I don't know what it is for you, but if I were giving advice to the entrepreneurs or the investors or those listening, the TA people, talent acquisition people, help people know what they're certain about and then begin to make it real. And in a world of uncertainty, I don't know if I'm going to be a professor at Michigan next year or not. I don't know just if your company's going to make it or not. You got 3, we'll take a risk. I don't know what's going to happen, got them to your company. I hope it does well. But no matter what, I do know this. And this, I hope people will fill out. That's been helpful for me at a personal level. I'm not going to travel anymore. Okay, I didn't, will I travel? Won't I travel? I don't know. How's my health going to be? I'm getting old. Health is not always good. Okay, so what do I know? And how does what I know pervade the uncertainty and the company where I work? What are we as a company committed to? Now, that's another long way to get to values, but that's the piece that if I were giving somebody advice, that's what I'd encourage them. What are you certain about? Okay, Jess, I'm sorry to do that with your kids. That was a little unfair, but I can feel that you love those kids. And that's powerful. And I hope they feel it.
Yeah. Gautam, you got a big smile on your face. What are you thinking about?
No, that was so, Zen-like, what are you certain about the present? Right. Dave, that was like brilliant. I mean, and really, I was going to ask you this question, what would be your advice? But I think that's it, right? I mean, after that, I don't think that's your advice, right? What are you certain of, right? Like, focus on that.
Yeah.
Right? Forget everything else, right? That's brilliant. No, Jess, I'm just smiling because so much of wisdom coming out.
Yeah. Dave, I get to do this a lot, right? And I'm interested in exercises or just principles you might have. It's obvious that you think hard. For those of us who want to increase our mental horsepower, are there practices or principles that you might encourage?
I'm laughing because about 2 years ago, I find an outlet, but this is the mindset, and then I'll be practical. I said to my wife a couple of years ago, I've discovered my ideas are my best friends. And she said, I thought I was. And I said, some days you are and some days you're not. Ideas are friends. What do you see? So here, get out of your comfort zone. Read something you don't normally read. Find somebody. If you recommend a book, somebody, I have a page of, I keep my page of, here it is. I have my page of ideas, and I have ideas of people say, oh, you should look at this. And so just be curious, get out of your comfort zone and make ideas a friend. They're great to wake you up in the morning. They're great to put you to bed at night. They're great to think about. And I'd encourage those who are the entrepreneurs, investors, just make ideas your friends. They're better than dogs. They don't poop. They don't require food. Although they irritate you, because if your ideas are your friends, they'll wake you up at night, not let you go back to sleep at times. That's my, and observe. What did I see today? What did I see today? LinkedIn is pretty good. I mean, that's a place who did something today that was really interesting. I got a request from somebody today. He said, I'm writing a paper about this survey. Would you give me comments? So I spent about 20. I don't think you have to have deep thinking all the time. This is not Zen every day. So I said, I'm going to give him some comments. And I did. And he responded just before this call. And he said, I like these 3 comments. I don't agree with these. Okay. That's my friend ideas. I hope ideas are your friends. And I also love verbs. I love verbs. I think verbs are actions. We talk about, you said you got them competencies, your role, your title. What's your verb? What's your verb? I enjoy thinking about verbs. What's the actions that will help me reach my goals that I'm certain about? That's where I try to play.
Yeah. Well, defined by what you do.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I come out of a religious background. A lot of people in whatever theology, and it could be Muslim with Muhammad, it could be Jewish, it could be Christian. Christ was a great leader. You can't deny that. Everybody, great. I've asked people that come out of religious backgrounds, so what were the verbs of Muhammad? That's an interesting question. What were the verbs of Christ? What did he do? And I think those kinds of questions cause me, watch an executive. Somebody, the person that's got a $500 million company that you're exchanging coaching. What do I see? What is he doing that he doesn't even know he's doing? What's the verb? Is he listening? Is he observing? Is he challenging? Is he pushing? Is he prodding? The more that I can begin, is he envisioning? The more that I can begin to see those verbs and then say, is that my strength? Is that something I can learn from? To me, that's an exercise that I go through quite often. I'll tell you another one. Gratitude. I made up these cards, and I try every week to write 1 or 2 thank you notes. And not, that's not I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything. Just thank you. Did a nice job. I've got a thank you note that I've got to write tonight to someone. And I hope that kind of mindset keeps me observing. What did they do that I really appreciated? And anyway, those are mine. I'd love to hear your tips. You've done this both so long and so well. And Jess, I'd love to know your sales tips. I'd like to have been a millionaire at age 24.
Oh, don't worry. I proceeded to quickly lose it, speculating on investments. And then
people have often said, if I won the lottery, what would you advise? And my advice is don't buy Bitcoin. So,
no. And then I proceeded to make it back and lose it again, speculating.
Really?
And so then I became a convert of Warren Buffett and compound interest investing. And this time I'm buying commercial real estate.
That's a great way to go, especially where you live. Well, commercial's tricky right now, but yeah, what a great discussion. I mean, I hope the people listening, I have a test, and I'll show the test here. I've done research. We've published books on leadership with data. Somebody said, so what's your test of a good leader? Here it is. When I leave an interaction with that individual, do I feel better or worse about myself? Got him our first interaction. We've just had 35, 40 minutes together. I'm feeling better about myself. Just first interaction. I don't know why. There's no evidence. There's no data. There's no science. If you're a leader, are you working so that when somebody leaves their interaction with you, they feel better? It's easy to do in this conversation. We're all being gratuitous and kind. But what if you have bad news? Can you still make sure they feel better about themselves? And in my coaching, that's one of the things I really work on. So you said, got him a final tip, certainty. But one of the things I'm certain about of leadership is leaders make others feel better. They empower, they engender, even in tough times. So
yeah, I would say they energize.
Agreed. They energize. And it's easy to do when it's all good news. I mean, the pre-Jess, when he was rich, he can share the goods with everybody. What about the post-Jess when he's slowly growing Warren Buffett? How do I help people feel better when I have to deliver bad news? And you can do it. You can do it. So what a great discussion. Thank you so much. I didn't know where it was going to go. This is phenomenal.
But this has been cool.
Yeah. So, Dave, whether it's the RBL website, LinkedIn, where are the best places for people to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm learning how to do it better every day. I have an rbl.net. I just started a newsletter on LinkedIn a few weeks ago and got quite a few subscribers in a few weeks. So I love the ideas. Somebody said, who actually writes all your stuff? I write it. Is good or bad, I write it. And I still have that compassion for English, I guess. But join me in learning. And then when it works, that's good. When it doesn't work, that's almost better. Because then run into it. Why? What went wrong? Anyway, LinkedIn is a good place.
That's great. Gautam, do you care if I finish this off this week?
Please go ahead.
Kind of my trend lately, it's kind of been my favorite way to end episodes lately. Dave, what's one of the best pieces of advice you would give a younger version of yourself?
Relax. I'm pretty aggressive. I mean, I did college in 5 semesters, took 24 hours a semester, taught 34 courses at 3 universities while I did a PhD, write books that get well. And I remember my partner looking at me and said, Dave, stop it. Your book just became a bestseller. Relax.
Great advice.
That is.
Well, thanks again for doing this.
Thanks.